how we work with our customer. How does it look? How often do we meet? How the meetings look like? How do we structure the cooperation? Who does what and when? As a project lead, I receive these kind of questions quite often. And they are very important questions, as the customer should know the details before we start project, and it's important for GetInData to be transparent on this, so the client is well informed. Answers for that questions are highly connected with the characteristic of the majority of the projects in GetInData. We specialize in big data, machine learning, cloud architecture, modern data platform, advanced data analytics, and more. We needed to find a suitable framework that works best for these kind of projects. Framework we have decided to use is called Scrum. It fits really well for IT projects and it's widely known and practiced on the market. There is a nicely done diagram that compares different approaches for different type of projects. Scrum is a form of Agile that works well when the problem is known, but the solution is unknown. This might sound obvious, the problem is known and the solution is unknown, but notice that there's a really large part of IT projects where the problem is known and the solution is also known. For example, when you implement a solution that you have already implemented tens of times for different clients. In these situations, when you are able to do full analysis up front and there is relatively low risk for any major changes during the work, then the traditional waterfall method is perfectly fine. In the Kanban method, we focus mostly on improving and optimizing the current workflow. The constant optimization and predictable steady workflow is very much fundamental to Kanban. What about our case? The big data, machine learning, cloud architecture, modern data platform, advanced data analytics. The characteristic of these projects are exactly where we know the problem, but the solution is something that we need to come up with. Solution is often quite unique. It is usually based on known components, but the combination of these components is specific for client and for the business requirements. Part of the scope of work will be to exactly come up with the solution and improve it over the time, which means the solution is dynamic. It cannot be fully planned up front like in the waterfall method. And that is okay, because Scrum addresses this challenge very efficiently. How does it work? In a nutshell, Scrum creates a working environment for the team. We can divide the way of working into 3 steps. First, the product owner sets the priority of all tasks that are in product backlog. Second step is where the developers take a small selection of that backlog and in a short time, let's say 2 weeks, they deliver implementation of that part. This small selection of work is called increment, and the final solution is the sum of all increments. The third step is where the Scrum team and the stakeholders inspect the results of this increment and provide feedback. It's a feedback about if the product works as a business has seen it, and if there's any additional business context that the Scrum team should be aware of before doing the next part of work. And this process repeats. The major benefits of this approach is that during the entire process of development, there is high transparency of the work done by development team, there is constant inspection of the results, and there is adaptation based on stakeholders' feedback. How do we begin the project? Where should we start from? Well, all projects start with a product vision. This is a fundamental step for both parties to understand the product goals. By definition, product vision is just that, it's a vision. It's not yet step to have full analysis and full backlog decomposition like in the waterfall methodologies. Together with client, we usually have on-site common workshops where the entire brainstorming process takes place. Both teams discuss the product goals, we ask tens of questions, we receive tens of answers, we discuss the technical details and propose an initial plan for the first part of work. The initial product backlog is formulated at this point and the first tasks are created. Interesting part is how to collect the requirements efficiently. Notice that from one side we have a client's business team that expects to receive a proper product that brings a value to the client's organization. All investments should bring expected return on investment, ROI. And from the other side, we have a technical team that expects to receive specific details on how the product should work. And since both teams usually use a different terminology, it is advisable to use proven technique that helps both teams on common understanding of the requirements. In Scrum, there is such a technique. It's called creating user stories. In software development and product management, a user story is an informal, natural language description of the features of a software system. They are written from the perspective of the end user. The most common template for user story is, as a role, I want to do something, to perform some action, because I want to achieve some functionality. For example, in the app that streams music online, one of the user story could be like that. As a user, I want to filter the songs by the artist because I wish to listen to the songs only of my chosen artist and not my entire library. Another example, maybe in the app that is used to order the food. The user story could be like, as a user, I want to mark my favorite restaurants because when I search for a meal, my favorite restaurants that provide that meal will be shown on the top of the search results. User stories are great as they facilitate communication and may help software teams to document their understanding of the system and its context. With user stories, you give a development team the business context, as it helps them to understand how they are providing a value for the business and to keep the users top in mind. Together with creating user stories, we prioritize them. The ones with the highest priorities go on the top of the backlog and the ones with a low priority on the bottom of the backlog. This way, any tasks associated with the user story simply inherits its priority. An example of an initial product backlog with user stories that includes the information about their importance and the priority could look like this. This is a true product backlog. Notice that user stories that you see on the slide are using the template that I described. This gives us a good overview of the business context. We see immediately the priority of each functionality that is indicated by the arrow icons on the right, and we also have some additional information about the web page that the functionality is associated with, whether it is related to a dashboard or findings or the settings page. When we have enough user stories in the product backlog, the Scrum team can focus on decomposing them to more technical tasks and then do the implementation part. How does that work? How do we approach this in Scrum? Well, main point is we do it in iterations with focus on a part of the work that brings the highest business value at the current time. In Scrum, it's called sprint. Sprint is a short time-boxed period where the Scrum team works to complete a set amount of work. Sprints are the heartbeat of Scrum, where ideas are turned into value. The product is built in a series of sprints which break down the big, complex projects into smaller size pieces. How long should the sprint be? Well, it depends on the business context, but the Scrum Guide says it should be between 1 and 4 weeks. We suggest starting with 1 weekly sprint. Our experience shows that if a project has a relatively short deadline, let's say 3 months from now. And the project team has just been created. The team members are starting to get to know each other. And the aim of this project is to keep the high velocity of the work and being open even to late changes. Then 1 weekly sprints are the most advisable approach. At later stage of the development, when the product is more mature and the team has gotten to know each other and their competences are better, then 2 or more weekly sprints can be introduced. When the Scrum sprints are managed and run successfully, they are very beneficial and improve project outcomes. Few benefits that Scrum teams gain from well-run sprints are like that. For example, more transparency. At every stage of the sprint process, the Scrum team collaborates and share ideas that could impact the project's success. The team members are free to express any objections, keeping in mind the goals and objectives of the sprint. This ensures that everyone remains on the same page and reduces the chances of the project failure. Another one is increased productivity. The sprint process helps improve the productivity of the team and enables the continuous improvement. The main result of a successful sprint process is that the team is able to work on a high value, high priority tasks and features. Next one is improved focus and clarity. Scrum sprints normally encourage the breakdown of work into smaller tasks and objectives. This ensures that the team focuses on achieving the particular sprint goal. And this means the team is not focused on a million different tasks and priorities at once. The next one is flexibility. Working in sprints enables the Agile Scrum team to adapt and respond to a change based on evolving priorities and customer feedback. Agile project management requires a level of team flexibility. Sprints ensures that the teams are planning not too far ahead and are able to respond to a change. All of this sounds promising, but you may ask, how does it work exactly? Are there any meetings? If so, what kind of meetings? What is their purpose? The answer is yes, there are defined meetings with desired outcome. Let me present them one by one. First meeting of the sprint is sprint planning. It initiates the sprint by laying out the work to be performed for the sprint. This resulting plan is created by the collaborative work of the entire Scrum team. All attendees are prepared to discuss the most important product backlog items and how they compare to the product goal. Sprint planning addresses 3 topics. First is, why is this sprint valuable? The product owner proposes how the product could increase its value in the current sprint. The entire Scrum team then collaborates to define a sprint goal that communicates why the sprint is valuable to stakeholders. The sprint goal must be finalized prior to the end of the sprint planning. Second topic is what can be done during this sprint. And through a discussion with the product owner, the developers select items from the product backlog to include in the current sprint. The Scrum team may refine these items during this process, which increases understanding and confidence. Selecting how much can be completed within a sprint may be challenging. However, the more developers know about their past performance, their upcoming capacity and their definition of done, the more confident they will be in the sprint forecasts. The third topic is how will the selected tasks get done. And for each selected product backlog item, the developers plan the work necessary to create an increment that meets the definition of done. This is often done by decomposing product backlog items into a smaller work items of 1 day or maybe even less. And how this is done is at sole discretion of the developers. No one else suggests them how to turn product backlog items into increments of value. Scrum is founded on trust, and developers are experts in their fields, so they know the best approach. The sprint goal, the product backlog items selected for the sprint, plus the plan for delivering them are together referred to as the sprint backlog. Another meeting is a daily Scrum. The purpose of daily Scrum is to inspect progress towards the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog to upcoming planned work. The daily Scrum is a 15-minute event for the developers of the Scrum team. To reduce complexity, it should be held at the same time, at the same place, every working day of the sprint. The developers can select whatever technique they want, as long as their daily Scrum focuses on progress towards the sprint goal and produces the actionable plan for the next day of work. This creates focus and improves self-management. Daily Scrums improve communications, identify impediments, promote quick decision-making, and consequently eliminate the need for the other meetings. The daily Scrum is of course not the only time when the developers are allowed to adjust their plan. They often meet during the day for the more detailed discussion about adapting or replanning the rest of the sprint's work. Next meeting is sprint review. The purpose of the sprint review is to inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations. The Scrum team presents the results of their work to key stakeholders and progress towards the product goal is discussed. During this event, the Scrum team and stakeholders review what was accomplished in the sprint and what has changed in their environment. Based on this information, attendees collaborate on what to do next. The product backlog may also be adjusted to meet new opportunities. The sprint review is a working session. We should not confuse it with the event when we do a product demo only. Important part is a discussion with stakeholders and collecting the feedback about the work, the next steps, and the business context. Final meeting is sprint retrospective. The purpose of the sprint retrospective is plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. The Scrum team inspects how the last sprint went with regards to individuals, interactions, processes, tools, and their definition of done. Improvements, risks, actions are identified and written down. The Scrum team discusses what went well during the sprint, what problems it encouraged, and how those problems were or were not solved. The Scrum team identifies the most helpful changes to improve its effectiveness. The most impactful improvements are addressed as soon as possible. They may be even added to the sprint backlog for the next sprint. The sprint retrospective is the last meeting in the sprint, and we start the cycle again from the sprint planning. Most often, the sprint retrospective is held in late hours in the day, so a new cycle with a sprint planning meeting is scheduled at the beginning of the next working day. The slide you see represents one of the techniques to perform a sprint retrospective. It's a moment where the entire team is able to share their observations about the current sprint. They cover 4 areas. First, sweet fruits on the left side. We share what went well during the last sprint. Then hidden gold on the top. We share with the team the parts of work that we are proud of and brought high value to the product. Maybe someone has received a help. It's an also good place to write that down. Third area is pirates on the shore on the right. We recall what didn't go well in the sprint, write them down and open a discussion. And the fourth area is message in a bottle at the bottom. We write down ideas that can be implemented in the next sprint. In this way, we record actions points for the future. These 4 meetings are a great place to keep continuous improvement in the product development and the Scrum team relations. Constant focus on optimizing our work, improve efficiency, and knowledge share results in a high quality code implementation and understanding of the business context. Let me also say a few words about estimations and product development timeline. Estimation is quite challenging to master, but a very crucial part of the product development. Since it's not easy to estimate very precisely the workload to complete the tasks, there are numerous techniques that can be used to help with this. One of the techniques that we often use is a T-chart sizing method to define the complexity of the tasks. Depending on the size of the tasks, the developers can assign a T-shirt size estimation, which can be S, M, L, or XL. Teams can obtain a relative understanding of how big or small the task is. It's important that developers arrive at a consensus on the T-shirt size assigned to each task. In GetInData, I recommend thinking in a way that small size is something that can be done within a maximum 1 day of work. Medium is around 2-3 days. L can take the entire weekly sprint, and XL is a task that needs to be decomposed into the future. There is no strict one-to-one relation between size and the time, as IT projects are complex and tasks need to include a buffer to keep the flexibility in time. The strength of the T-shirt sizing is that everyone is familiar with shared sizes, which makes it a great option for new teams that don't have much shared context of working together. The T-shirt technique fits really well for the Agile and Scrum way of working, as it is easy to understand and includes the part of uncertainty that comes along with all the development work. At the same time, the estimations can provide an important insight into the amount of work in the scope in relation to the calendar timeline. Estimates are great, but they have a very specific purpose: to support decisions regarding planning the sprints and the product development. To get a good perspective of the amount of work to be done, we decided to use a popular technique, which is the Gantt chart. An agile Gantt chart is a bar chart that offers a timeline view of an agile project. There is a vertical list of tasks on the left-hand side with corresponding start and end dates. These tasks are also visually represented on the right-hand side with horizontal bars, and the length of the bars corresponds to the amount of time the tasks will take. Gantt diagrams illustrate project schedule and help visualize the start and end dates of any process. In the context of agile software development, such charts are used to illustrate releases or sprints. Notice that visual representation of progress is undoubtedly useful. It also can greatly facilitate communication. Since these diagrams are easily understood by all parties, regardless of language or expertise in an agile software development practice, they are useful tools when trying to collaborate with or report their progress to several teams and departments across various regions. Gantt charts can be employed to keep an eye on the logistic of the projects. Tasks dependencies ensure that a new task can only commence once another task is completed. If task is delayed, then dependent issues are automatically rescheduled. Gantt charts can include milestone, dependencies, and other important metrics to track a product development progress. Important information here is that Gantt chart in Scrum helps to visualize workload, helps to visualize dependencies, provides you an estimate of the date when particular functionalities will be completed, but this is only visualization. It's not the same Gantt chart as from the waterfall method, where it is treated as a source of truth for upcoming month, and any changes are not welcome. In Scrum, this chart provides you simply additional insight of the workload stretched on the timeline axis. Business context can still change, priority can change, market can change, and therefore Agile Gantt chart can also change, and it is treated just as a regular update. As a summary, using the Scrum Framework is a good choice for a client and vendor when working on products from areas of big data, machine learning, cloud architecture, modern data platform, or advanced data analytics. This way of working helps us achieve the first results in a short time period, and we can start projects with a small, well-designed team with necessary skills. Very often we deliver the first business-ready results in 2-3 months with a team of few people from the GetInData side and a few from the client's team. My name is Rafał Zalewski. I'm a project lead in GetInData. I have years of experience in Scrum and Agile. I hold certificates like Professional Scrum Master 2, Professional Scrum Product Owner, Agile Project Manager Practitioner, Prince 2, ITIL 4. I also hold technical certificates like AWS Solutions Architect Associate or Google Cloud Professional Cloud Architect. If you would like to talk more about Scrum and Agile, you are very welcome to contact me. I will be glad to answer your questions, or we can have a common discussion. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks.